Hello everyone. This is my video for Module 10 in relation to creating a community of care and support for students, which of course is an essential part of being an effective school leader. So first, let's talk about the summaries of the articles that were assigned for this module. The first article had to do with the priorities that a school principal should focus on, and those things were emphasizing a caring and inclusive school environment, equipping staff and faculty to embrace their own leadership roles, and collaborating with their community. Now, it also talked about how exactly this would play out. For example, in order to emphasize a caring and inclusive school environment, students should be known and respected. And part of this is having a relationship with the adults in the school. So it reminded me of the video from the previous module, Module 9, in which there was a check-in, check-out program. And because of that, 98% of students felt like there was an adult in the school that cared about them, which of course improves school environment. As far as collaborating with their community, this article also stated that it's the job of a principal to know and address the needs of the community. And this can be done through working with community partners. The second one had to do with something that we have read about before, which is about a teacher's mindset and the effect that that has on children. So the quote that I took from this and put here first is that changing a teacher's mindset can change a child's whole world. And this is extremely true. We can talk about what is that effect? The effect in which if you have a positive expectation of a student, they're more likely to perform positively, and if you have a negative expectation, they're more likely to perform negatively. I can't remember the name of that right now, but this tied into that. And of course, the way that teachers are trained has a big effect on the way that they interact with their students. So this article talked about kind of a control group study kind of situation where one group of teachers was talked to about control and discipline, and the other was talked to about empathy. And the teachers that were talked to about empathy had a reduction in referrals and suspensions and students being sent out of their classroom and things like that. This ultimately ended up with the importance of respect, showing respect to your students, and some of the things that this includes are of obviously remembering their names, and of course not speaking down to them or embarrassing them. I think this is something that can be unfortunately easy to do if you're frustrated with a student and maybe you unintentionally shame them in front of the class. I think especially in a culture like when I lived in Korea or in China as well, shame is a big part of the culture, and even in American classrooms you have to be careful of pointing fingers at students and calling them out in front of the class, but it's especially true here. Yes, and another thing is, of course, expressing interest in their perspectives. And this has to do with inclusivity, and I think also with cultural responsiveness by showing that you care about the students, what they have to say, who they are, and where they come from. This can change a student's attitude towards school, how willing they are to do work, and ultimately all these positive increases over time can reduce suspension rates, and of course by reducing suspension rates that will further reduce the potential for students to drop out in the future or be involved with the criminal justice system in any way, because instead of punitive discipline, it's much more responsive and empathetic, and students feel seen and heard. The third article was about creating a classroom environment and how that can either increase or decrease a student's ability to learn and feel comfortable as a part of the class. So this can be done in a number of ways. So as far as the classroom environment, the first thing that we might think about is the physical environment. So with things like decorations, being mindful of the colors that you use, the decorations that you use. Are they distracting and overpowering? Are they, it mentioned that colors like red and orange can maybe make students feel more anxious, whereas blue and green are calm. Dark colors can make them feel kind of sleepy since they absorb sunlight. So even being mindful of that. And also the way that the classroom is physically organized. So I think of the way that the desks are organized. If you are able to move the desks around and they're not stationary, stuck in one spot, then you can change the way that the desks are organized to make conversation more conducive and group work and then things like that. And next, also, you can change the environment through classroom procedures. So the first thing the article talked about was creating special traditions. So this will vary, of course, the traditions that you use with a young class and an older class. But she mentioned, or she, I believe, the article was written by a woman, I believe, mentioned that one tradition could be starting with reading something together, the same thing every day. I've had teachers do this in the past and seen teachers do this, kind of like a pledge to committing themselves to bettering themselves and things like this. I also have a routine with my students in which every day when I walk in, I say good morning and they say good morning, teacher, and we talk about how we're doing first and kind of touch base before moving on. And another way is through conducting classroom meetings, so giving students the ability to have input in what happens in the classroom. And next, the next way to structure the classroom environment, is through classroom strategies, like teaching self-advocacy and self-determination skills as well. And I mentioned teaching and practicing reflective and active listening. The article talks about the importance of teaching self-advocacy because especially when we're dealing with CLD students or students with disabilities, being able to teach them and model for them how to advocate for themselves can be an extremely powerful thing in their lives, especially when we start young and students learn to really advocate for themselves. That's an extremely important and powerful life strategy. And the fourth article just kind of had some bullet points about how you can make the classroom more positive, have a positive learning environment. So one thing is making learning relevant, of course, as we've discussed in previous modules, developing a code of conduct, reinforcing positive behaviors, help to develop intrinsic motivation. So I think, one thing in, I believe, module 8, talking about high expectations and how setting high expectations for your students can increase their intrinsic motivation because they consciously or not want to be held to a higher expectation, and it can make them more motivated, also getting them to buy in and understand and be able to personally express the importance of what they're learning and relating it to their lives, like this. Another thing is always responding with positivity, which again, we're humans, us teachers, and can have bad days, but it's important to always respond with positivity when we can. Next are the articles that I found independently. So this first one I gave a whole slide to because it was really interesting. So in my research, I came across this bullying prevention program. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. OBPP. It was commonly cited in the literature, and basically the goal of this is to restructure the child's social environment through 4 main tactics, which is teachers should show warmth and positive interest and be involved in the students' lives, which has been covered in some of the module articles, set firm limits to unacceptable behaviors, so basically expectations are clear, consistently use non-physical and non-hostile negative consequences when rules are broken, so non-punitive, but firm. There are still consequences for breaking the rules and things like that, but it's not going to be a hostile kind of situation. And also for teachers to function as authorities and positive role models. So this program is implemented, if we look over here at the table, in 4 components: school level, classroom level, the individual level, and the community level. And different studies showed, this was done in Norway, this was also done in America and some other places as well, showed a 62% decrease in bullying behaviors and significant reductions in self-reports of antisocial behavior, and also improved students' perception of the social climate of the school, that they had more positive relationships and a more positive attitude towards schoolwork and school in general. The next article is it was a book, and I just read different sections of the book, and it covered a lot about how important it is to take gender into consideration when addressing bullying prevention. So, for example, girls, so there's this common thinking that boys are more aggressive than girls, and that is questionable at best. Girls do bully as well, just as much as boys, but it's relational bullying. So through things like attacking their friendships, or their spreading rumors, gossiping, attacking their social relationships. And this is very easily done on with the social media being so prevalent as well, whereas boys tend to bully through insults and more so with physicality. So one thing that this book talked about a lot was empathy training and how it was a way to reduce the occurrence of bullying with both sexes. But again, the training must be differentiated based on gender, and also before you assume what to train, you should also test individuals and use data to create a program instead of assuming that boys are going to be one way and girls are going to be another. The next had to do with bystander behavior and how implementing programs that increase self and social awareness, SEL skills, and use role-playing and responsibility training led to a 20% increase in bystander intervention. And the last one kind of touched on all of these things and really addressed the need to develop children's social competence skills for engaging in healthy relationships, which goes a long way in preventing bullying. So in brief, the data on bullying, there are twice as many instances of bullying in primary school than in secondary school. So younger is really, when kids are younger, that's really when it's mostly happening. Bullying mostly occurs on the playground in between classes or when an adult is not present. And the most common types of bullying are verbal and social bullying, which is no surprise as there are typically heavier consequences for physical bullying. And physical bullying does happen less often. If bullying is happening at various schools, the school environment is less than ideal. So policies should be put forward that include training teachers on whether it's empathy training or addressing the way that they respond to students when students exhibit negative behavior or break rules, establish rules, or the code of conduct or what have you, so teachers can be more respectful and inclusive even in the face of difficulty. Empathy training for teachers and students alike, cultural responsiveness and inclusivity overall, and most importantly, an environment of mutual respect and positive discipline rather than punitive discipline. All of these could really help and have been shown to really help in reducing the occurrence of bullying and promoting a positive school environment. So as I stated before, when these standards are followed, bullying behavior is decreased by 62% using the OBPP model. Yes, OBPP. And in another model, bystander interventions increased by 20%, which is significant. Ultimately, less bullying means a better school environment. Safety comes first. Children can't learn if they don't feel safe, and they need to feel safe in every part of the school, not just in the classroom. They need to feel safe on the bus, they need to feel safe in the hallways, in the bathroom, they need to feel safe when adults aren't around. And addressing bullying also addresses the root cause of a lot of other problems as well and can yield positive results above and beyond a reduction in bullying behavior. So here are my 8 references. I am looking forward to, actually, when I worked in Philadelphia, my team member and we worked as SEL, social emotional learning coordinators, and we actually held events throughout the year and did things to address bullying. And I believe it yielded positive results throughout the year, and we did use some of the tactics mentioned, but I learned a lot from this, and I'm looking forward to finding ways to use these methods in my classroom, particularly creating an environment of mutual respect and inclusiveness. Thank you.